My name is Inso. I am 37 years old now. For most of my adult life, I worked as a doctor in a small hospital in a provincial town in North Korea, not far from the border areas where life is especially harsh. I was born into an ordinary family, not elite, not connected to the party in any special way. Like everyone around me, I learned early that survival depends on endurance, silence, and knowing exactly where the lines are drawn by the authorities. Life in our town was a constant struggle. Electricity came for only a few hours a day, sometimes none at all. Medicine was scarce. The hospital had almost no modern equipment. We reused syringes after boiling them, and many operations were done with the weakest painkillers or none at all. Ordinary people, especially peasants from the surrounding villages, received almost nothing. Children suffered the most.
Malnutrition was everywhere. People came to us swollen from hunger with skin diseases, parasites, or simple infections that had turned deadly because they had no strength left to fight them. I treated thousands of such cases. I saw mothers bring children who had eaten grass or tree bark because there was no food. I saw men collapse in the fields and be brought in half dead. The hospital was supposed to serve the people, but in reality, everything was controlled. You needed permission from the local authorities to even be admitted for anything serious. Without connections or bribes, many simply died at home. I did my best within the system. I worked long hours, often without proper rest or food myself. I helped the elite when they needed it, party officials, their families, military officers from nearby bases. That gave me some protection, but it also meant I saw the stark difference between how the powerful lived and how everyone else suffered. This is the world I knew for years, until the day I made the decision to leave it behind forever. If you are watching this, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and write a comment below. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to bring more important stories to light. Thank you.
One of the first serious cases that showed me how little human life meant to the system happened in the spring of 2018. A man named Yang Chul, about 42 years old, was brought to our hospital by military truck. He had collapsed in the fields during a forced labor mobilization. The authorities needed every able body to plant rice and corn. People were worked from sunrise until after dark with almost no breaks and very little food. When he arrived, he was barely conscious. His heart was racing irregularly, his breathing shallow, skin gray and cold. He was severely dehydrated, malnourished, and had clear signs of heat exhaustion combined with heart strain. His legs were swollen, and there were open sores on his feet from cheap rubber shoes that had worn through weeks earlier. I immediately started treatment. We had almost no IV fluids, so I used what we had. Saline solution that was already several years old.
Determined, I gave him whatever glucose we could spare. I stayed with him through the night, monitoring his pulse every hour. He woke up once, looked at me with empty eyes, and whispered that he had a wife and 2 small children waiting at home. If he didn't return to the fields, they would punish his family too. For 3 days, he hovered between life and death. I used every trick I knew. Traditional methods combined with the little Western medicine we had. Slowly, he started to improve. On the 4th day, he could sit up and eat a small portion of rice porridge. He was still very weak but stable. The authorities did not wait long. On the morning of the 5th day, a truck arrived. 2 soldiers came in and told me he was needed back in the fields immediately. I tried to argue that he needed at least another week of rest, but they didn't listen. They half carried him out. As they loaded him into the truck, he turned his head and looked at me one last time. I never saw him again. Months later, I heard he had collapsed again, and this time they left him where he fell. His family received no compensation, only the demand to continue working.
The second story happened in the summer of 2019. One night around 2 a.m., there was a quiet knock at the back door of my house. I opened it carefully. A woman in her 30s, her face covered with a scarf, stood there trembling. She whispered that her 3-year-old daughter was dying and begged me to come. In North Korea, ordinary citizens, especially from the lower Songbun class, needed official permission to visit the hospital for anything beyond the most basic treatment. This woman had no permission. Her husband was a simple farmer. Going through official channels would have taken days, and the child didn't have days. I agreed to help. I took my small medical bag with whatever antibiotics and charcoal I could gather and followed her through dark alleys to their modest house on the edge of town. The little girl was lying on a mat on the floor, her skin a terrifying greenish color.
She had eaten poisonous wild plants out of desperate hunger. Her tiny body was convulsing weakly, eyes rolled back, breathing labored. I worked for hours. I induced vomiting as best I could, gave her activated charcoal, tried to stabilize her with the little fluids we had. The mother cried silently the whole time, afraid even to make noise. By morning, the child's color started to improve slightly. She was still very sick, but I believed she would survive if she continued careful care at home. A few days later, the authorities found out. Someone had seen me leaving the area. I was called in for questioning. They gave me a strong warning. Helping people without permission was considered undermining the system. But they couldn't punish me severely. I was one of the few doctors who could treat the local party elite and their families. They needed me, so I received only a formal reprimand and was told to be more careful. The little girl survived. I never saw her again, but the mother managed to send me a small bag of chestnuts months later as thanks, the most she could afford.
The third story took place in late autumn of 2020. A family secretly contacted me through a trusted neighbor. The father, a man in his 50s, had suddenly become very ill. High fever, severe abdominal pain, vomiting blood. The family had gone to the local party secretary, asking for permission to bring him to the hospital. He refused, saying they had not met their work quota and that illness was no excuse. He ordered them to work extra hours instead. Desperate, they came to me at night. I went to their home. The moment I saw the man, I knew it was too late. His skin was yellow, his belly distended, breathing shallow and rapid. Likely advanced liver failure combined with internal bleeding, common in people who had survived years of poor nutrition and heavy labor. I did everything possible with what I had. I gave him pain relief, tried to stop the bleeding, but his body was shutting down. I asked the family to leave the room for a moment.
I sat with him alone. He was conscious enough to understand. I told him gently that his time had come and that it was okay to let go. He squeezed my hand weakly. A few hours later, he passed away quietly in his own home, surrounded by his wife and children. The family was devastated but grateful that he didn't die alone in a field or under punishment. They buried him secretly the next night, afraid to report the death properly.
The fourth story is one that still haunts me the most. It was winter of 2021. A young woman of 28 named Miran came to me secretly. She was pregnant with her second child. Her first child, a boy of 4, had a severe congenital heart defect. In North Korea, such conditions were almost always a death sentence for children of ordinary families. Surgery was impossible for them. Miran had been working in a textile factory despite her pregnancy. One day she collapsed. The factory manager accused her of laziness and ordered her to continue. She came to me at night, bleeding slightly. I examined her and the boy who was with her. The child was blue-lipped, struggling to breathe after any small movement. I tried to help both. I gave her medicine to stabilize the pregnancy and advised complete rest, which I knew was impossible. For the boy, I could only give weak, heart-supporting herbs and tell her to keep him warm.
Concerned. A week later, she returned in panic. The boy had died in her arms during the night. She was still pregnant and now faced punishment for missing work. The authorities called it negligence and threatened to send her to a labor camp. She begged me to write a false medical report saying the child had died of natural causes, unrelated to her work. I did it. I risked everything and wrote the report. She was spared the worst punishment but lost her job anyway. A few months later, she gave birth to a stillborn girl. The grief broke her completely. I heard later that she took her own life by walking into the frozen river one night. 2 children and a mother gone. All because the system saw them only as labor units, not human beings. This story broke something inside me that never fully healed.
The fifth story happened shortly before I decided to escape. A pregnant woman in her 9th month was brought to the hospital unofficially by her sister. The birth was going wrong. The baby was in breech position, and the mother was exhausted from years of malnutrition. Labor had been going on for over 24 hours at home. I performed an emergency delivery by candlelight because the power was out. The baby was not breathing at first. I cleared the airways, gave mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and massaged the tiny chest. After several terrifying minutes, the baby cried, a weak but real sound. Both mother and child survived, though the mother was very weak afterward. This birth gave me a small moment of hope in the middle of darkness. But it also reminded me how fragile every life was in our country. After years of seeing these things, I knew I could not continue. I had occasional access to the internet through my position treating high-ranking officials. I carefully contacted people who helped defectors. With the help of South Korean and American contacts who supported medical professionals, I was able to cross the border and eventually reach freedom. The journey was dangerous and long, but I made it. These are just 5 stories from the many I witnessed. Life in North Korea's hospitals is not like anything you see in the free world. It is a place where medicine fights not only disease, but an entire system that values loyalty and labor over human life. The courage of ordinary people who still try to help each other in secret is remarkable. If this story touched you, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and write your thoughts in the comments. What story affected you the most? Share this video so more people can learn the truth.
Pause. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video on Freedom is Me.